Welcome to Cheryl Antonio, the Untold story. This is episode 5, the day Rachel disappeared. In this episode, I will detail the events of Rachel's last day ever seen alive. On the 25th of April 1998, which was a Saturday, and also Anzac Day, Rachel attended the Anzac Day services in the morning with her air cadets. She participated in both the dawn service and in the service held later that morning. Rachel returned home following the services and changed from her uniform into her ordinary clothes. At about 11 o'clock a.m., Rachel visited a friend's house in Powell Street, Bowen, but no one was at home. After she left, she was seen walking near the post office in the town. At about 11:30 a.m., Mrs. Terry Greenoff, who had known Rachel for many years, saw Rachel in Herbert Street, the main street of Bowen. At around 12:30 p.m., Rachel attended the Bowen swimming pool, paid her admission fee, and entered the pool area. The pool manager and lessee, Mr. Sidney Pate, later recalled that when Rachel entered the pool, she was not carrying any swimming clothes or a towel, and that she stayed for about half an hour. Rachel then came back through the foyer of the pool office, and Mr. Pate asked her, "What, didn't anyone else turn up?" To which Rachel replied, "No." Rachel then left the pool, turning left outside the entrance door in the direction of Herbert Street. Later that day, whilst at home at about 4 o'clock p.m, Rachel asked her mother if she could attend the cinema that evening to watch a movie. Her mother gave her permission. Shortly after, Mrs. Antonio went to do some errands, and when she did, Rachel was still at home. That evening at around 6 p.m, Mrs. Antonio dropped Rachel at the cinema. She dropped her off at approximately 6 p.m, 1 hour before the session was to commence, as her car at the time had an issue with the headlights and she did not want to drive during night hours. Rachel was to catch a taxi home or possibly get a lift if she saw anyone else at the cinema that evening that she could arrange a lift with. To occupy the 1 hour prior to the movie commencing, Rachel wandered over to Queens Beach, which is an area she was very familiar with, as that's where she undertook her surf life-saving patrols. Just after 6 p.m, she sat in a lifesaver's elevated lookout chair. Following that, until 6:45 p.m, she spoke at the beach with 2 men. She stated to them, quite significantly, was that she was waiting for her boyfriend. This was not a statement that either man had to draw out of her. Rather, she volunteered that information quite freely. There's some significance that when she asked these 2 gentlemen on a number of occasions what the time was, clearly that was a pressing issue and can be explained by the fact that she wanted to be at the 7 o'clock p.m. movie session, or possibly to meet somebody at 7 o'clock p.m. Rachel was also observed at the entrance of a laneway near the tennis courts directly opposite the beach foreshore by 2 men making their way home after a visit to the bowls club. There's nothing particularly startling in this other than to confirm that Rachel was in the immediate area just before 7 o'clock p.m, near the beach where she patrolled, rather than purchasing a ticket to enter the 7 o'clock p.m. session of the movie she was going to watch, which was Good Will Hunting. What is clear is that Rachel never attended the movie at 7 o'clock p.m. The owner of the cinema, Mr. Ben DeLuca, who had owned the cinema for many years and who also knew Rachel well as she attended there regularly, confirmed that only 9 people attended that session that night, and Rachel was definitely not one of them. On this evidence, it is quite clear that Rachel did not attend the 7 o'clock p.m. session of the movie Good Will Hunting that day, or the cinema at all. No one suggested that she did. It is highly likely, on other evidence, that Rachel was intending to meet somebody in the Queens Beach area at around 7 o'clock that evening. There was no evidence from anyone that they saw a second person arrive in the Queens Beach area with Rachel. Possibly because there was no commotion, no notable incident, rather just the ordinary comings and goings of people in the area, and it was approaching dark. This area is also a little removed from the houses just nearby, and unless anyone had a particular interest in observing what Rachel was doing, her movements would be quite an innocuous event. What this highly suggested is that Rachel was not abducted against her will, because in that case, she would most likely scream or call out. There would be some commotion to draw some attention to the area. But if she was simply to walk away, meet somebody, or willingly hop into a motor vehicle, there would be no reason for any residents' attention to be drawn to her activities. All of this suggests that she was not abducted, nor was she taken against her will in any way. This was the last time Rachel was ever seen.